Normally, he could cope with the screaming. When you hear it every day, it just fades into background noise. But today, he couldn't ignore it. The fear, the pain, the frantic thrashing of something desperate to escape. It only lasted a few seconds, just a few seconds of agony and terror, and then she stayed still. Normally, he could cope. But this time, the screaming felt endless. Perhaps it was the eyes. He'd looked her in the eyes first. He shouldn't have done that. He saw the fear there, the panic and confusion, and suddenly, the thing in front of him was no longer just another body. It was something alive, something aware. The mental wall that he had built to protect himself cracked, and the screams rushed in all at once. Eventually it stopped. The screaming gave way to the silence. But the silence was worse. When she had been screaming, she was still alive. Now she was quiet, and he knew what that meant. He had killed her. Suddenly, he longed for the noise again. If she was still screaming, there would be a chance, however small, that his actions could be undone. But the silence meant it was too late. How many had there been before her? How many lives had been ended by his hands? How many more were yet to come? He told himself he could stop, find something else to do, but he didn't believe it. What else was there? If it wasn't him doing this, someone else would. It was necessary. It had to be done. Excuses, lies he'd repeated so many times they almost sounded true. But it wasn't his fault, not really. It was just his job. The people paying him were the ones to blame. They should be carrying this guilt, not him. Or was that just another excuse? All he could think about were the eyes, those desperate, pleading eyes. He tried to focus on anything else, but his mind refused to let him escape. They had been so full of life, searching wildly for safety, before finally meeting his gaze. When their eyes met, had she thought he was there to save her? Or had she understood in that final moment that he was the one about to kill her? A stronger man might have looked into those eyes and chosen mercy, but he hadn't. He'd only looked away and done what he was paid to do. He sank to the floor, dragged down by the weight of it all. The tears came before he could stop them. He knew the others would be watching. He knew what would happen to him for this, but he couldn't hold it in any more. I can't do this anymore, he whispered. He turned to his co-workers and felt his face burn as he saw their expressions. Blank, uninterested, almost bored. They felt nothing. These people he worked beside every day, some he'd even called friends, felt nothing at all. David, one of them began, kneeling beside him. But David pushed him away. The others had gathered now, forming a loose circle around him. Some stared awkwardly. One hurried off, probably to fetch a manager. A few whispered amongst themselves, speculating about what had set David off. And then one of them laughed. It was quick, careless, a laugh that had escaped before being hastily stifled. But something in David snapped. The noise in his head fell away, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. He turned toward the group, searching their faces. "Don't you get it?" he said. "Don't any of you get it?" Silence. Confused looks, shifting feet, but none of them looked where David wanted them to. He forced himself up and turned back to the bodies. Looked into those lifeless eyes that had finally broken him. Then he faced his co-workers again. "We killed them!" The words hung in the air. He waited for it to hit them the way it had hit him, for understanding to dawn, for guilt to show on their faces. Nothing. They glanced at each other, at David, at the floor, anywhere but at the bodies. "Look at them," David said, his voice shaking. "Please, just look at them. We killed them." He collapsed again, burying his face in his hands. "We fucking killed them," he sobbed. "I can't do it anymore. I won't." One of his co-workers stepped forward and knelt beside him. "I can't," David whispered. "I can't do it." The man took a slow breath and put an arm around David's shoulder. A simple, practiced gesture, comfort in a place built upon suffering. David's sobs gradually softened into uneven breaths. The co-worker pulled back slightly, keeping a steady hand on David's shoulder. He looked into David's eyes and saw guilt and fear, emotions he couldn't quite understand. David, he said gently. They're just pigs.